Welcome to season 2 of the More Cheers podcast. We are back. We're going to have conversations on topics that you might be avoiding. Some of them you're having at the braai already.
We want to hear your beer stories. We want to understand what role beer's played, what's your favorite way, what's your favorite place. And welcome back to season 2 of the More Cheers podcast, the podcast where we celebrate conversations about beer and beyond. You've come to the right place. Please welcome my amazing co-host, the fabulous Masha Kumire.
I say it every episode, but it doesn't get old.
And I toned it down this time. I was like, it's our final episode for the year. Let's relax.
I'm so excited. It's been 1 year.
Crazy.
We're in December.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm tired. It's been a long year, but it's been a fantastic year. And today we're going to be talking about, December it's wild in December. And it's a sobering conversation, but I think a conversation that we need to have. And really about how do we champion responsibility over the festive season so we can make it till next year, people. We want to make it till next year.
I think calling it the festive season is an understatement at the moment. I think South Africans have taken December to a whole new place. We used to celebrate the 16th, the 25th. Now we celebrate from the 1st until the 1st, non-stop. And that's why I think today's episode is particularly great because we've got a very exciting guest coming up. Now, I'm going to let Marsha introduce that guest to you. But before you see the guest, I think it's very important that you have context for just how serious things are going to get. So strap in, take a deep breath, and watch this.
I remember there's a friend of mine that said to me, I can still hear you scream even now. Ndipiwe. He was my son. So like any other mother, we really had a very dear relationship.
He was a son to me and a big brother to his cousins.
He was more about developing his friends and assisting them to live a better life,
He was very kind, very loving.
Family was big to him. That was the most important thing. So as they were still looking at these bright lights, the next thing, it's just sound. They were changing a flat tire. Ndipiwe and his friends were killed instantly. The drunk driver that hit them, the alcohol content in his blood was 6 times more than the legal limit. No normal person would wake up and say, I'm gonna kill 4 children today. This is the only child that I had. The worst for me was that I will never ever get to raise my own grandkids.
That person's selfish decision to drink and drive forever changed our lives.
I gotta say I'm proud. I think that's the word. I'm proud because this is a conversation that needs no gloves, and if you just watch that, you will know that no gloves were used. It cuts deep, it tells a story, and it reminds me of things that my mother would say, my boy, choice and consequence. That's what life is all about. Be smart enough to understand the consequences you'd like to enjoy and let those inform the choices you want to make. And if the line, that man didn't leave home to kill 4 children, didn't leave you with chills, then there's something wrong with you. That's what's happening. Every time you jump in a car under the influence, if you're drunk, you are making a decision to kill people. And if we can get South Africans to think about it like that, I think we clean up the roads immediately.
So before we get into it, I've got a special guest here today. So it's a campaign that we were working on, and it was very emotional, like very, very emotional. And it was my first brief that I got when I got into this role. And really excited to introduce, I was going to say a young, but then I don't know, can I say young? Can I say a young talent? A young talent. So his name is Melusi, and he is an award-winning creative. He has won in South Africa. He has won internationally, and he has won at the Mecca of marketing, and that is can. Some of us are still striving. So we put this brief to Melusi, and he is the MD and creative. Can I? Is it
CCO?
CCO?
Is that the founder?
Founder,
Oh,
yeah.
Founder, yeah, we're founding now,
Because
yeah.
CEO sounds like maybe you work for someone.
Yeah.
No,
Founder.
founder.
He founded. Right?
Yeah,
the
you
agency.
give pay slips. You don't receive pay slips. I like it. I like it.
He is the founder of a really cool agency that we worked with on this project called We Are Bazaar. Please give a warm More Cheers podcast welcome to Melusi.
I want the boop, 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 boop.
Yeah, you see, we're in now. So, Melusi, maybe just tell us that before we get into the work and what we've done with Sharp, just tell us a little bit about you, your journey. I mean, you've won Lurie's Can. Who is Melusi? Who are you, sir?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. I heard that this is like this is the final episode of
For the year.
For
For
the
the
year,
year.
for the
This
year.
is like a grand finale, guys.
My guy. The December riser.
December episode.
Of episodes. So my name is Melusi Mhlungu, and I am the founder with a capital F and a small R of We Are Bazaar. And I'm also, I want to say Chief Creative Officer and part founder of a movement called Josie My Josie, which is a movement aimed at revitalizing our inner city of Josie. And so, yeah, both with, like, I've always been like a fan of creativity, a fan of ideas. I remember ever since I saw the first commercial that I ever saw as a kid was, Chandi, where's the cremora? There's no cremora in the fridge.
It's not inside.
It's on top. I'm like, I need to do that thing, whatever that thing is.
There were so
I
many
wanna-
of those.
So many. Telkom, I think, was one of them. Where Molo
Yeah.
Mhlobami.
Molo,
I
Yebo
love-
Gogo was
Yebo
huge.
Gogo
I
was
love that
huge.
ad.
Watch this one. You've got an uncle in the furniture business.
Joshua Doe.
Come on. Come on.
Like, isn't it crazy how there are ads that you just remember? Like,
Just stick in your head.
just stick
That's
in your
how
head.
good they were. I don't know what.
Yeah.
Maybe you can talk to us about that
Yeah.
next. But before you said so, Cremora was the ad.
Was the ad that got me
you
into,
marketing.
and I was like, whatever. Did people get paid to do that thing? And if so, I want that check.
I like that you're like, did people get the money first, not the creative?
Yeah, I'm like, this looks cool. So, yeah, that's, I'll literally say that's probably the moment where I was like, I want to get to do this advertising thing. And I didn't know what it was at the time. Then I started out my career at FCB here in Joburg. And then I went to Ogilvy, South Africa also. And then in about, I think, 2015, 14, I then moved to the States. And yeah, so the past, I want to say, 6 years I spent in the States. Miami, Chicago, and New York, just, absorbing, learning, being a sponge, and being a student of the game. Because that's all I've ever wanted to be, is just like, be at a place where I get to learn from the best, right? And I've always, had this dream of like, I want to go to the States and see if like there's anything different that they're doing, right? And yeah, so 2015 that happened just after I'd won the Young Creative of the Year here in SA, and I was like, what's next, And yeah, so went to the States, came back about a year and a half ago now. I started We Are Bazaar as soon as I came back, and which was at the same time that Josie My Josie, the movement, was started. And it was, for me, the biggest reason why I came back, I think, is for two things. And you'll see one of those in action now, right? Was about how can I use my creativity for good. And so I wanted to open up an agency that could create ideas that have impact, but also ideas that I think can outlive us. Because we're in the space of like, like we get briefs every day, and it's so easy for like just we want a new idea, want a new ad, so how can we start creating sustainable ideas and ideas that can, I want to say, outlive me. So projects like this, I think, get me excited because I want from years to come for us to elevate conversations when it comes to societal issues. And so that's been my passion. I'm passionate about two things. South Africa, my country. Mzansi, my Mzansi, I love you. And I'm passionate about ideas, and I get to wake up every day and do that.
I was praying that the second thing wasn't going to be singing. I thought you were going to say, I'm passionate about South African Zanzi, I love, and singing. And then I was going to say, no.
No.
So tell us the second. Tell us the second part again. Tell us the second. So you proud of South Africa
and Mzansi, SA, like I or coming up with ideas, I guess. And so for me, I get to come up with ideas that help create, I want to say, a better Mzansi or better communities in our country.
Love that.
So you're championing responsibility. You're like a, what do we call it? A good, I can't say corporate citizen, but you're a good South African.
I don't think it needs to be labeled, but I'm going to leave you with this saying, and you must stick it on your heart because it helped my heart. A very good friend of mine, Siving Gesi, who weirdly was my partner in crime on a set of Castle Lager ads years ago, is where we met. And Siv said to me something the other day. He said, my brother, we were raised wrong. There is nothing wrong with getting rich while doing good. And it was such an interesting sentence for me because we feel guilty sometimes. We want to do good, and sometimes I don't think are able to achieve the type of good we want to do because at the same time we don't want to make money. And he was like, there's nothing wrong with making money while doing good. I believe you can achieve both, and I completely believe that too. Is that something that has just always been on your heart, or is that inspired by your love for the country and where the country is now?
I think there was a turning point. It was probably after COVID because I was in Chicago at that time, and I got to work on, COVID projects, right? And suddenly the whole world, it felt like, and then like we cared about each other, cared about people, and for me there was a switch in terms of like, can I start becoming a creative that creates from a selfless place, right? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with creatives and young creatives out there, and I truly will encourage you guys to, when you're starting your career, create from a selfish place because that's when great work gets made, right? But there's a turning point where you can find that balance, right? And for me, that was the turning point. Is like, how can I start creating from a selfless place? And yeah, it's just like, can my ideas do more than just sell product?
I find it very interesting because you've said so many of the things that I love, because then you're the dream creative to me. You're a creative that cares, but you're also a creative that understands that the most authenticity comes from following your passion, following your heart, and creating a little bit selfishly. And how do you kind of diverse that? But what I find most interesting is your inspiration is to create content that is going to live forever in a time where I think that is more difficult than ever. So all of the ad slogans that we just spoke about, for example, came in a time where most of the country had 3 channels, some had 4, and then if you lived in a valley, you had 1 from 11 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. These children don't know the struggle.
They don't know.
They don't know the struggle that we went to bunny aerials. You know what I mean? They don't know these struggles. And what I found was, so for example, I chatted to a friend of mine, Stuart Taylor, who was on a very popular show years ago called Going Nowhere Slowly. And he said to me, dude, the crazy part about TV in those days is everybody was watching. So he said, we did 1 episode on a Saturday night, and the episode aired on a Saturday night, and Sunday morning we were famous in South Africa because the whole country was watching. So I think it was also easier to create those kind of ads that stick with us. At the moment, I think what's scariest, and this is my question, is it then more difficult? Because we look at very cutesy, very demure. For 2 weeks, the whole world is cutesy, the whole world is demure, and then after that, we forgot about demure and we move on to whatever the next, it was Hawk Tour. We've had all of these hilarious things. So is it more difficult to come up with concepts that have actual staying power in today's time?
Yeah, I think definitely more difficult because back then you could say that brands were competing with brands, and that's not the case anymore. Now it's like brands are competing with everything that I'm scrolling through the timeline, right? And so how do you become breakthrough in that instance? And for me, part of that was at the core of We Are Bizarre, the agency, was I want to create hard to ignore ideas. So ideas that make you stop scrolling. And yeah, that's the vision.
My words on stage after COVID was, okay, I know I can make you laugh. My objective is now, can I make you feel? And that's become the thing. Can I make you feel? When I watched that TVC, I felt. I felt it was raw. It was uncomfortable. It was honest. So when that brief across your desk, was it something that immediately excited you in terms of your ideas on how to execute such a raw, such an important piece?
Yeah, who sent you the brief?
Who sent me the brief?
I wonder.
I wonder.
Wonder, who was this?
So then maybe let's skip you and let's go to the source.
The source. The source of the
Marsha,
brief.
so my honest feeling on that thing is it's absolutely perfect because it's about a topic where we shouldn't be making excuses. It is still a big business behind it. So there's all of the normal rules of how SAB is able to tell a story publicly have got to apply. And you've kind of got to be in a space where you are brave enough to take the gloves off, share true stories in their most vulnerable. My friends say they can still hear me scream. You don't leave home to kill 4 boys. It is brutally honest. And I feel like it stuck with me. Was that your intention from the beginning, to give Jason Goliath shivers and make him think every time he jumps behind the wheel?
So I'm going to rewind it back and talk about the platform that we have called SAB Shop. SAB Shop is SAB's responsibility platform. So
Yes.
it's a evidence-based program started in 2021, and it's got like 4 pillars, and we address different societal issues. And the pillars speak to what is in our influence as a business. So our first pillar is called Live Sharp, and this is really about if you look at what's happening in communities, there's a lot of unemployment.
Yeah.
Through our SAB Foundation, we assist young entrepreneurs, people that are wanting to start companies or start, so that they can do something meaningful and then hopefully employ more people. And then we have a pillar called Live Sharp. Sorry, I've said Live Sharp. So we've got a pillar called Drive Sharp, which is what we're going to talk about today. So Drive Sharp is really around championing responsible behavior on our roads. And I'm going to leave it to the end because I've got my colleague that's going to come and explain some of the work we do there. But it's really around being more responsible on the roads and really tackling this behavior of drinking and then getting on the road and driving. Then we have a pillar called Talk Sharp. Talk Sharp is really about how we, especially with our marketing brands, how we as a company market in a responsible way.
Yeah.
So we don't use pregnant women. We don't use people that, even if you're 21, you look older, younger, we don't use you. So we
I
have
think the onset rule is 25.
25, yeah. So we only, in
Yeah.
our ads, you only use people that are 25 and up. And then we also have a code that actually, it's called the Responsible Marketing Code of Communication. And it's a self-regulated code. So it's one that we have put rules in place for ourselves. And we have a committee that actually looks at all the marketing that goes out through our business and looks at it through the lens of, is this responsible? Then we have the Sell Sharp pillar, which is quite important because that's where our products are sold. And the Sell Sharp pillar really looks at how do we champion responsible trading with our customers, because that's where people are consuming the product. Are we equipping them with the tools they need that they're business owners, but business owners operating in community. And so there's a training academy that we do. Over 30,000 of them are trained. So it's quite an important one. And I think there's still a lot more work to do. And so when we wanted to do this campaign, we decided to focus on Drive Sharp as a way to, how do we, with the work that we do, and Aviwa is going to join us later, and he's going to talk about our Alcohol Evidence Center. But we wanted to drive awareness. So as SAB, we're on the ground and we're working with law enforcement, but we hadn't really done a lot of above the line work. And the brief was, how do we create, the brief to Melusi and his team was, we wanted to create something, and it's interesting to say something that makes you stop, but we wanted to talk to South Africans in a way that would challenge them. I think we've seen a lot of responsible marketing communication, and it's important to have it. And how are we going to be different? What was going to make you listen or stop and consider? Because it's going to take some time to change this behavior that we have. So what we wanted to do was, when you watch this piece of work or interact with the work, it makes you think, is it worth it to get in a car after you've had a drink? And if we could start a dialogue I think we'll call it what is it called, creative ambition. We gave him, I don't know if you remember that ad, speaking of Papa Vachveyo, hope I'm pronouncing it right, and that ad scared me.
Papa Vachveyo keeps me
Yeah.
up most
I
nights.
was like, I don't want to go to jail, okay? I don't want to go to jail.
And imagine, you're
and
a
I don't want to
single
meet that
serving.
guy.
I'm a buffet
And
in
so
Bali.
that for me was all I needed, not to drink and drive.
100%.
So we were asking ourselves, because that was some impactful, like, creative that you still remember. So the brief to Melusi and his team was, give us communication that's going to make South Africa stop and have a conversation around this behavior. And then I'll hand it over to Melusi to say, when the brief came, because I had to phone him and say, I have a brief for you. I hope it's exciting. And yeah. So Melusi, talk us through what happened on the other side when you guys got the brief from us to say, we have this project. Do you guys want to take it on?
Yeah, so when I received the phone call from you, it was, I don't think I slept that day because I had said, yes, I can do this thing, right?
You
And then
never
I'm
like,
like-
to say yes. And then your brain afterwards goes, yeah.
Because if you think about it, it's just like, it's a big task, right? It's a big project, especially for a young agency, right? And I think for me, there was both the opportunity, but also the pressure, right? And as we've said, like, we've seen so many don't drink and drive campaigns. So my first thing is like, what am I going to do that's going to be different? And I think that more than anything is what kept pushing me, and also was the reason why I did not sleep for the first couple of weeks for thinking about this brief. And I think after going through, ideas after ideas after ideas, we landed on something that, like you said, was very raw, was very authentic, was very real. Because I got to a place where I was like, okay, cool. If people are not going to listen to brands, could they listen to each other, right? And maybe it's time for people to listen to people. And what better way to do that than sharing real stories of people that we might know, next door neighbor yami, or somebody that's like from work, like really relatable stories. Because we also have this thing of it's not just South African thing, but African thing, like Ubuntu, right? We've got this compassionate thing about we care, we really do care about each other and about community, and then we go and drink and drive and get behind the wheel. So how far does that care go?
Yeah.
Right. And that was for me the starting point of the thinking. But I had the ambition already because, like I said, this was the first. It was almost like my first chance to show the world this is what Bizarre can do as an agency, and what better way to do it than with such an important project.
Were we the first big piece of work?
This is the first commercial I've done as an agency.
This is not the time to expose yourself.
No, this is
not
great.
the-
No, it's great. Sitting as SAB, I'm like, guys, you did hear that.
This is the first commercial.
Gave Bizarre their chance. No, but wow, that's
Yeah.
that. Well,
Yeah,
I
so
think we
you
ended
can-
up in a good place.
We ended up in a good place.
I
We
think
ended
a
up
good
in
place is an understatement. I think when you watch it, I think you've ended up in a phenomenal place, and I think it's twofold. I think Marsha, it's because you had a very clear idea of what you needed execution-wise. So I think you had a very specific, and I want to. I don't even want to call you a creative. I want to call you an artist. Because what you produced
thank you.
is in itself a work of art. It feels like poetry. It presents like a sculpture. And maybe talk us through the creative process of executing not only the messaging, because yes, you've got real people with real experiences, and it's easy for us to kind of have empathy and feel those experiences and relate to an experience that a lot of us kind of share and would have had. But you just took it to another level. As you're telling the story, you're going through these pieces that mimic the actual accident, and we don't understand until the reveal right at the end, when you kind of draw back and put this person's face so in my face that I can't deny how raw this all is. So talk us through that creative process in terms of taking something where it's easy to create emotion about because you've got real world experience and not paid actors for a change, which made me very, very happy. But then to be able to articulate it with that art piece at the end and make it almost feel poetic. It's beautiful. I mean, congratulations, but talk us through that.
Thank you. So part of there was a lot of sleepless nights with this project.
Both
so both sides.
Both sides.
And I knew from the word go, and it's very important to have, not just a client but a partner. And I think that was a great part about this partnership, is that I could call Masha and say, Masha, what is keeping you up about this thing? Because we both had never done anything like this, right? So there was that courage and step that I couldn't have taken by myself, number one, right? And so the process, I wouldn't even call like there was a process, because everything, all we knew is we want to create these living, I want to call them living sculptures, right? To honor the people that have, I want to say, gone too soon.
Yes.
And also we knew that we want to find these stories, which was actually one of the hardest parts of this process. You think, there's a lot of stories out there, and there are.
Yep.
There are. But the bravery it takes
Willingness to share.
to come forward and say, I'm willing to do this. So that was like the first hurdle we had to.
Yeah.
I'm willing to make my family members
Lots of-
face the face of this campaign.
Yeah,
you
and
know?
lots of sleepless nights on getting the stories,
stories,
and
yeah.
then I think when we got them, it was also, you're looking at them and going, okay, this is
Where do you go from
where,
here?
like, now you have to honor the stories,
Yes.
right? Like
They're
the
real
family,
people.
and
These are
these are
real
real.
tears.
This is not like you said, it's not actors.
No.
So I mean, if I tell you the collective, I spoke about the collective and the talk shop pillar, heavily involved, like every step of the way. But obviously more pressure, and I think you probably haven't so many questions asked on a campaign before, because the due diligence had to be
Done.
like, and also the sensitivity. And thank you to the Olifants and the Samsons for stepping forward and really being brave enough to share your story with South Africa. And I feel like they're my family now. So I'm like Mama Sarah, and she, it was very, like, because you're right. And there was and funny enough, as we went through the journey, everyone started telling and sharing pieces of themselves. So we have, she was actually project lead on the team. Her name is Tato. She lost her mom to a drunk driver and only found out during this process. So all of a sudden, it's not that story over there. It's one of our own, and there's probably so many still in this building.
And then after that, and that's why, I say, it almost felt like every part and step of this entire process, there had to be so much care, due diligence.
Oh, there's love all over it.
Empathy. And I think for me, I felt that I had two clients, right? It was one was, the brand, and then two, it was the families, because I think if we didn't put forward something that the families loved and were proud of, and then I might have missed the intention of what I wanted to do. And I think that was the first and most important thing that kept me. I was like, when they see this, because think about this. So how the day went, which is the scary part. So we started out with the interviews, right? All the families knew was that we had done something to celebrate in honor the loved ones, right? They had no clue what the thing or the installation they were going to see, but they knew they were going to see.
So the installations are not just AI.
No, that's
because I was like, that's too perfect, guys.
Real
that was
life.
real life.
Oh my
It was
goodness.
Real
2
life.
meters.
Oh my goodness.
It was insane. And so day of the shoot, this is how the shoots went. We started out with having the conversation, and so even there was no script, right? That was also another thing, and having as I go back to walking the journey with the right partner, is I said, Masha, there is no script. There's no way you can script something like this. And so everything that you heard, the words that they shared, was their words.
You can feel that.
And you can feel it, right? Because, back when the process started, I started out writing the script, and it felt wrong. Right?
Yeah.
But then there's a risk of what if they don't say what we need them to do? And you just had to let all those things as a creative you're trying to control out the window. So they come in. and we have an interview conversation. And shout out to the director, Fasto. This could have just been another great idea on paper,
Yeah.
without the right, like, director and partner. And
I think that's also very important. For those of you watching this thing, in fact, I'm going to go as far as to say 8, maybe even 9 out of 10 wonderful ideas are let down in the production process, either by budget, the wrong cast, the wrong director, the wrong writers and storytellers. And at some point, we always call it in the industry, our babies die. Because you've got wonderful ideas in the boardroom, everybody's fist pumping and excited, and then execution, particularly when you're executing in rands. And if you're in production, you'll understand exactly what that means. We've got so many restrictions and limitations. So when I see something that came through as perfect, because guys, and I'm not just saying this, they are perfect. They are perfect because you are able to tell a story in such a magnificently South African way. And by that I mean, I've always said things like, I think what makes us so unique as South Africans is this blend of first world, third world, in terms of our first world thinking, first world access to equipment, first world access to education, so we can execute in the first world. But where we beat the first world is we've got the substance of third world storytelling, where our stories still need to be thick and real and heavy and mean something, and not just Hollywood, you know what I mean? Not just glitz and glamour. It's got to really, really stick there. Then being able to tell that story, honor a victim, honor the family of the victim, and make your point in a goosebump raising way. And it's as simple as, if you are going to drink and drive, you are saying you don't mind taking somebody's life.
Yeah, and we always had the idea of, like, that's a selfish thing. Right?
Yes.
But the families themselves say that. So
Yeah.
even the line at the end when you see the commercial, I'll go back to the process. So let me go back to the process a little bit. So the families come in, sit down, they talk to the director. So it's a very intimate moment. Even the set, we made sure to make sure that, like, there was, like, least amount of people on
Yeah.
set,
Yeah.
right? Because, like we said, they're not actors.
No.
And so we
And
had to
they're
make
talking
sure
about real
that
pain, real
it's
trauma.
comfortable, right? And then they spoke, and then after they spoke about their loved ones, and then we let them know that there's something we want to show them, right? So now we don't know what's going to happen,
Yeah.
right? It's that moment of, and then they walk to a separate room, and then suddenly they see this for the first time. And I think that was the moment that made it also real for me. Because the entire time you think you know how
Yeah.
it's going to play out, but nothing can prepare you for that moment. Because at that moment, it was like, we're just going to let it happen and let it be, and give them all the time and the space to be in that,
To feel.
that, you know. And it was such an incredible thing to be a part of, because at first there was that moment of, like, are they going to move forward, are they not? And then that first step forward, and just, like, tears of joy. It was very, very moving, because like I said, like, we're not sleeping, not knowing how they're going to react to this piece. And so can you even imagine, the sculptures were actually made from real photographs that we had, and they had it on set, right?
Yeah.
And the pressure from the art department is like, we need to make sure that this is this person that they
Yeah.
still
Like,
remember.
looks like the person.
And it looks like the
Yeah.
person. And they walk in instantly and recognize that person. So it was all those unknowns. But when they all came together in one moment, and then the magic just happened.
So all of those things that you're speaking about are not normal on an everyday commercial set. You know, all of those variables are easy to account for when you're dealing with a script, and we're selling this brand, and we don't actually care about the way the actor feels about anything on
More
set or
text.
the environment. So you said that's the moment that it got real for you, when you saw their faces and you felt their pain and you saw the emotion that this was coming through. How did you feel when you first watched the final product?
I called Masha. I think we're editing in Cape Town, and I gave Masha a call because I wasn't even supposed to go to the edit. I was like, "There's no ways I'm going to this edit now," and sat with the director for about a week or so, just like editing. And I think that there was a night when I left the edit suite, and I was like, this must be one of the best things I think I've put out there. And to feel like this was just still the first edit. And sometimes, like with edits, you're like, oh, maybe it's going to change. Like, I just instantly knew this is something special. Because number one, I hadn't done something like this. I hadn't seen something like this. So there wasn't even a point of reference to be like, oh, we want to do something like that other
100%.
thing. But as soon as I walked out that studio that day, I got to the hotel and I watched it again, and I was like, this
We've done it.
probably be one of the best things I've done.
Jason, you asked about typical sets.
Yeah.
Everything was done in one take.
Yeah.
So we didn't shoot twice.
Yes.
Or it was one take, because someone's telling their story. You can't be like, okay, stop,
Edit,
change your angle, look into the camera again. Like how these guys in the background here tell us sometimes. But it had to be done once. And even the moment of the reveal, it had to. You couldn't come back and do it again.
you had to
So
nail
where
it.
the cameras were placed, giving them the space, so intimate, so not like everyone watching, and planning for where they might stand, or
Yes.
So yeah, everything was one take. We only had one chance to get everything we needed.
Even the shot where you'll see, like when we go through the
Yes.
the accident scene, right? That entire sculpture first had to be built in a miniature set. So it was, we had to plan everything down to like the small detail, right? And obviously worked with that movement, made sure the movement was going to be, absolutely right when we go and build the bigger scale.
Because even those little movements, all of those movements talk to impact. They talk to the crash. They talk to the pain. Just every little thing feels so deliberate and just seems to compound and compound and compound, and it builds to that big reveal. So you're saying all of that was on purpose, yet you only had one opportunity.
Yeah, and for, I think, the production side, and shout out to Fasto, is dealing with a director that has like the passion for detail. Even when you think, it's late at night, you're like, guys, we've got it because you're tired.
And he's like,
no. Again,
be close.
right? And like go one shot all the way in, and like we're holding our breath. We're like, is this the one? Is this the one? And then it happened. You're like, whew, there is the shot that he was looking for, right? And it was just like, like I said, everything was almost like the unknown, but like that is what created the beauty of the entire spot.
I want to say congratulations, but I also, Marsha, want to say congratulations to you. What you guys don't know about Marsha is, this is an irritating person, guys. Marsha wants everything to be perfect. Let me tell you, if there's a person that double checks a dotted I and a crossed T, and I don't know if that speaks to, just your life, just your journey, just how hard you had to fight to kind of be where you are. But this person is irritating. When it comes to perfection, she wants what she wants. And I think more than that, she knows what she wants.
Yeah.
So Marsha, I know how passionate you are about Drive Sharp. I know how passionate you are about this campaign. How did you feel the first time you saw the articulation of a brief that I know you didn't just glance over, a brief that you took time to make sure that this is your moment, this is your ability to put SAB's stamp on really creating and driving change and creating responsibility within a sector that in South Africa needs help?
You're exposing me.
it's a fact.
I am OCD. I'm not gonna lie.
No, and those are compliments, by the way. I promise you, those are be
there's
like
levels.
Marsha.
There's levels
Be
of
like Marsha.
perfectionism.
Be like Marsha is what I'm trying to
I'm
say.
a perfectionist in my own way. But so I think one of my old VPs, used to be a VP, marketing VP a while ago, his name is Bruno, asked me what do I want to leave? And why do I want to live for my role? And it's actually, I didn't think about it for the role at the time. I've thought about it now, is I want to tell African stories. and tell African stories our way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And tell them to the world.
Yes.
Growing up, I don't think it's okay. I think it's fine for other people to tell our stories, but we are the only ones that can tell our stories in the way that it needs to be told. And this brief was scary because I was 2 minutes into my role as corporate brand director, and that was the brief. And I remember Zoleka, our VP, was like, "Mosh, this is big. Like, this is big. We've never done this is a big campaign." And so I was very nervous because there's work that's actually being done on the ground.
Yeah.
So you're also having to juxtapose what we're doing there and how to drive, and then also what is going to be something that is going to be meaningful. Because it's tough. I mean, as an industry, our products are meant to be enjoyed responsibly. And it's really tough for us to witness and watch people abuse the products. And we've got amazing brands that are made by amazing people in this company who spend time crafting. So it is heartbreaking to see our products abused, and I think it's important for us as a business to be part of the solution. We always talk about this part of our tagline says "Future with more chairs," and we can't have a future with more chairs unless South Africa is responsible. So for me, the stress and the sleepless nights was, first of all, it was using an agency that no one in the company has used before.
Yeah.
So that
Shout out
was
to the
nerve-wracking. And I guess it's trusting my gut. And then now that you're like, okay, we've got an idea, can we execute it, like you said, right? Is it going to, now everyone's bought into the idea, how can we bring it to life? So choosing the director, like we had debates in the team. There was, like, is this the right director? Went away. I think I even said, let's go sleep on it. So that we could pick the right people. And for me, the moment was on set. We planned for the families, like Melusi said, we planned for them, and knowing that we were telling real life stories, and we had a psychologist on set, because it was emotional that some of these have happened. They're not recent accidents. They're accidents that happened quite a while ago. So they have to relive that. In telling the story, they're reliving their pain.
You're pulling the plaster off that old wound.
And so having somebody, a professional person who deals with grief, helping talk them through it and preparing them for what's going to happen, we forgot for ourselves. I think, I don't know, thank you, whoever bought the tissue, amazing. I think it was very emotional. We were very quiet where we were sitting, extremely quiet. And I don't think we could say anything to each other. We were just like scribbling notes or whatever. I was very emotional. Hadn't planned to feel that way. Was in the business, and of like, we need to make sure it's right. And we forgot about ourselves. And I think everyone on the set, the crew, everyone was like, wow, just listening before we even saw the footage, just listening to the stories, the families tell their stories. And if you hear Dipiwe's story, he was 21. His life was just about to start. Him and his friends had a flat tire, pulled over to fix the tire, and all of them perished. The drunk driver, and you hear it in the film where Mama Sarah talks about where he was over the limit, and he just didn't see them, obviously. And that's why you mustn't drink at all. You mustn't get in a car if you've been drinking. And bulldozed them, and they all died. All four people died that day.
All four children.
And then you hear Mama Sarah talking about how his passion for the community, he was part of a soccer club, he was active, like the whole community, like it wasn't just his family, the whole community was affected by his loss. He had a girlfriend that, he really cared about, was hoping to marry. He was the only child, so Mama Sarah talks about how she can't have grandchildren ever, and then I think a week after the funeral, they found out that he'd been accepted. I don't know if it was a grant or his business had a. There was something.
He got a job offer.
A job offer.
On Monday,
a job offer, and that came after his death. And so this is somebody 21 years old, had his life ahead of him, and taken in a selfish way, like really selfish. I personally think that if you get in a car and you've been drinking and if you have anything to drink, it is selfish.
Very selfish.
There's no other, we can say a lot of things about anything, but it is very selfish, and it is a choice. And I think it's a choice. And hearing these families talk about, these, and then you've got Dion, who was a police officer doing his job.
A servant heart is what his wife said.
Right? And doing his job, regular day, gone for a shift, and this person didn't he was being asked to stop, obviously didn't want to stop. And his family, met his children, like he's got 3 children, beautiful kids, really, really very, very, very beautiful family. And it's very selfish. So, and I was hoping that with the edits, that is articulated. And that's what South Africans take out, is that drinking and driving is selfish. Right? There is no excuse.
Absolutely.
And I think
drinking and driving, it's not about you spending the night in jail. It is about the children that will die, the communities that will be left devastated. Because like you say, it's not just those 4 kids. It's 4 communities.
there's the ripple effect of our choices.
Oh.
Right? Like I do something, I hurt someone, and I've left a family maybe without a breadwinner. What happens to those kids? So
Legacy
it's-
is ruined.
It's not just about.
So I want us to move, because I feel like we've really felt it, and I want to say, Melusi, you've done an incredible job, yourself and your team. I think a masterclass in storytelling, a masterclass in driving message, but also in this day and age, a masterclass in authenticity. And I think that's what makes it work most of all. Is it doesn't feel addy, it doesn't feel preachy. It feels honest, it feels devastating, and I think that's where your action is going to come from.
Yeah.
I was chatting to a mate of mine yesterday who was asking me, hey, what are you guys talking about on the podcast tomorrow? And I said, hey, we're actually talking about, responsible consumption. And my mate was like, hey man, I can never understand why SAB promotes responsible consumption, because obviously they want people to consume. I mean, December is coming, obviously they want us to consume. And I said, Papa, you think too small. And he said, what do you mean? I said, irresponsible consumption means SAB want you to have a beer tomorrow.
Yes.
They would love you to enjoy a beer today, but they would also love you to be around to enjoy a beer tomorrow. And I think that's what it's all about. And I realize that there's a lot of ignorance out there in terms of SAB's true attitude towards responsible consumption, and then ignorance that extends into not really understanding all of the detail of what that means to SAB. So Marsha, we're going to move on now, and we're going to start discussing all the other areas with a focus on, what is it called? The
Alcohol Evidence Centers.
The Alcohol Evidence Center. I'm just going to say, prepare to be triggered. Our next guest is going to trigger me and probably going to trigger you. But Melusi, we can't wait to see you winning even more at Cannes, my friend.
Thank you so much.
Maybe drop a piano track just to diversify your portfolio. I don't know. Whatever works for you. But thank you for going to the States. I never say that to people. Thank you for going to learn and then realizing that we've got great stories here. Let me take this knowledge back home and put it on the map. We see you, we appreciate you, and salute, my brother.
Yeah, and I want to say thank you to Marsha again. Having a great partner in what we do.
And she's
you
great.
You can't just
No,
tell
no, there's,
stories on
Stop
your
it.
own.
there's partners
Stop
and then
it.
there's singers. Hey.
Marsha said
Like hiding
on the
now.
brief, like she said to me, we don't want to do another shock campaign, shock tactic, because we've seen a lot of those, right? So I always walked away with that. But I want it to be known that killing 4 children, that should be shocking.
That's the most shocking thing I've seen, my friend.
Traffic officer, that should be shocking. So there's different ways that you can bring across such horrific stories, but told in an eloquent South African way, like you said. So thank you for trusting us to tell those stories, and thank you to the families for just trusting us to tell the stories for them, and we hope that South Africa listens.
Thank you,
Salute.
guys.
Salute.
Salute. Up next, it's time to breathalyze.
Dion was my husband. We were married for 19 years. He was a trustworthy, loyal, down-to-earth type of guy.
Nothing was effort for him. All answered father, supportive, loving man. If things were too hard with school or like in our personal lives, a good shoulder to cry on.
He had a servant heart. The way he served in public, in his workspace, that is the way he served us. Being a traffic officer, Dion was doing routine check. Someone decides to get behind the wheel and be intoxicated. And this guy, he knocked Dion over and he dragged him. my daughter asked me, Mommy, who's going to give me away on my wedding day? That decision of his robbed us. I was robbed of a husband, because we were robbed of a father. Community was robbed of a positive role model. That person's selfish decision to drink and drive forever changed our lives.
I want to give a shout out to the Sampson family. Thank you for sharing your story with us. And I think I want to take this opportunity, now that you've seen both of our Drive Sharp films, please comment below. What do they make you feel? Are you as proud as we are? Do you want to see more like this? And even advice on what you are doing in your little community to help everybody be more responsible and drive sharp.
Fantastic. So we've got a viewer. You heard me mention him a few times earlier. So a viewer, welcome to the More Cheers podcast. Is this your first time on the podcast?
Yes, it is. And thanks for the welcome.
So before we get into what you do at SAB, maybe tell us a little bit about your journey and who is a viewer, and talk to us a little bit more about your SAB journey.
Oh, okay. Thanks again for the welcome. As you said, my name's Abviwe Filita. I've been with the business for about 12 years now. Started way back in 2012 as a sales trainee. Made my way to account manager, and then in 2017 left sales, the sales side of the business, and came over to corporate affairs down in the Eastern Cape, back home. There was a community specialist there, and then moved up to Joburg after COVID to assume my current role now as lead for Drive Shop.
Fantastic. So talk to us a little bit about the Drive Shop pillar, because you are the lead on the Drive Shop pillar, if I'm not mistaken. Talk to us about it. What are you constantly doing on a daily basis to get South Africa to Drive Shop?
So the job is to do a lot with law enforcement, right? I spend a lot of time with cops. Sometimes I think too much.
But you sit in the front of the van, not in the back. Let's just be very clear that none of the meetings happen in the back of the van. Yeah, okay.
Well, that's the upside of it. So I run what we call the Alcohol Evidence Center program. So that's the program where SAB actively pushes responsible driving for law enforcement. It's all about providing the resources for law enforcement. So one of the biggest issues that we have that's only gotten worse, I think, since COVID, is that the sort of like resources available to law enforcement to properly enforce drinking and driving laws in the country are not always there. So that's the gap that we then as SAB fill in with this program. Then.
What are these resources? I'm imagining breathalyzers, which I'm going to speak about in a second. But what are the resources that you speak about?
Yeah, so over and above just the breathalyzers, we've got what we call the actual alcohol evidence centers themselves. So these are centers where cops no longer have to take you to a hospital, to the doctor in order to breathalyze you. So when we started back in 2009 with the alcohol evidence centers, we started with buildings. But then what we've seen over the last couple of years that we needed to pivot, right? So what we now have is like the mobile alcohol evidence centers. So these are trucks where police will actually breathalyze you, take your blood if needs be, at the roadblock. So now instead of having to sort of like waste time going back to the doctor where the hospital might be full or whatnot, everything now happens right at the roadblock. So the centers have what we call an e-bat room, which is the evidentiary breathalyzer that we use. And that thing will get your results in about 5 to 10 minutes. Okay. And we don't even need to take your blood. So
from that, admissible in court.
Admissible in court. Just from that breathalyzer.
From a breathalyzer?
From a breathalyzer.
I mean, I'm not trying to look nervous. I'm not trying to look nervous. I must be honest. Like breathalyzers, it's the same as, I'm one of those people that if somebody here, like behind the camera said, hey guys, my cell phone's missing. There's something about growing up in El Dorado Park that I blame myself first. I know I didn't take this person's cell phone, but I end up searching myself. Then, literally, true story, 3 weeks ago, I'm doing a gig for a big petrochem company, a big oil company, And I arrive, and nobody's given me any warning. They're just like, no, you'll arrive, security, what, checkpoint. You may have to watch an induction video. But as I arrive, I stop at a boom, which we're used to. The security guard approaches the car. I'm used to that. I take my license out because that's generally what it is. The same as coming in this building. You've got to scan the license, scan the disc. I put the license out. That guy moved the license like this. He moved my hand like this and put a breathalyzer in my face. No warning. No, guys, you must understand, this was 8:30 in the morning. So obviously, I never drive drunk. But even though it was 8:30 in the morning, my brain went into a state of shock. Like the guy kept saying, Papa, blow like you are blowing for your birthday. You are sucking now. Blow more, blow more. Like I had a panic attack, and I don't know what it is. Then I thought about it building up to this. And I think South Africa and law enforcement, and I was giving law enforcement full credit, because what they've done over the last 20 years in terms of enforcing consequences, if you think about people drinking and driving, it's still an epidemic today, right? Yeah. But 20 years ago, it was so much worse because there were no consequences. Even if you did get stopped, the breathalyzer wasn't admissible. Then you'd have to be driven to a public hospital for your bloods to be taken. Generally, the system at some point would break down, and you'd have people that should have been prosecuted getting off. Exactly. Now you're saying SAB is one of the reasons that law enforcement has been able to create these consequences, and just based on a breathalyzer. Give me a close-up on a camera. There are breathalyzers at roadblocks this December that don't require a blood test before a court of law. I want you to think about your life very, very clearly. If you're one of those people that doesn't want to just think about the fact that you can kill somebody by getting in a car after driving, know that the law is now backed up, and people like this, it's called Alcohol Evidence Center, and people like this are responsible for sending you to jail if you do wrong. So just don't. Sorry, I got carried away. Tell us more about this alcohol evidence.
I hope they heard you.
No worries. I think even with the message, I mean, a lot goes into these centers as well. You'll have issues where people have asthma for some reason, whatever, you can't blow. Yeah. And you think, you've escaped. You haven't. We have got a second room there where we'll take your blood right there at the center. So we'll have the nurses available at the roadblocks with law enforcement. We can take your blood, we can store it there, and then we'll test it a bit later.
So there's nurses at the...
So there's nurses.
At the roadblock?
At the roadblock. There to take your blood if you can't provide a sample.
Life is simple, guys. Choice and consequence. Yeah. I believe that one of our major problems in the country is there's not enough consequences. Yeah. I believe that a lot of the stuff we see is because there's no consequences, and the fact that we are so involved with law enforcement to enable them. And what is the response from law enforcement? So how do the police feel? Do they see you as an ally, as a partner? Are they grateful for the assistance?
No, definitely. We've got a great relationship with the stakeholders that we have. I mean, currently we have about 28 alcohol evidence centers across the country. We are looking to have about 50 of them by the end of next year. So the project is still expanding, and the relationship, like I say, it's great with law enforcement. I think just to jump on something that you said earlier about consequences, and for us to ensure that those consequences are met out, the vehicles, obviously there's a lot of technology that goes into the vehicles as well. Yeah. One of them is the cameras that go into the vehicle. So everything is recorded from when you stop at the roadblock right to you coming inside, and we always have that footage archived and kept in case we need it for court, or in case there's any funny business that we need to have a look at again. So yeah.
So breathalyzed by one of our centers on site, that breathalyzer is admissible. Should you be in a position where you can't breathe, maybe you suffer from asthma and you've cheated breathalyzers before, don't worry about it. We've got nurses on site that will take your blood there. And if you're one of those people that you think that people with money don't go to jail in South Africa, let me just tell you, we've got cameras just for you especially. I feel like I'm going to go into law enforcement after this.
Your next gig, please. So I think it's very, you're right. First of all, you're right. When you get pulled over, unlike other places, like, you get a bit nervous. Like, you're like, okay. Then they're like, even if you haven't had anything to drink, they're like, okay. And you're like, okay, no, I haven't had anything, but, okay, I haven't, but am I going to pass? So it's like, I think it's just a natural, for the normal people, a natural thing. So Aviwe, like you're talking about, I think you've said it, that there's a challenger, there's an attitude, should I say, around people in South Africa thinking that they don't get caught. Right? So how many arrests have been facilitated with these alcohol evidence centers so far?
So with the alcohol evidence centers that we've had so far come out, we've facilitated about 24,000 drinking and driving arrests.
Just with the centers?
Just with the centers that we've had. So with all the support that we give to the law enforcement and through the work that we're doing through those AECs, a whopping 24,000. And that number grows week in, week out. As I say, I'm constantly with law enforcement, so constantly looking at the numbers, and week in, week out, the number still gets higher.
How do you feel about the job you do? Are you a hero in your community, or are you considered?
I think it's actually funny because last week we were actually launching 2 more of these evidence centers, and my friends always post whenever they see these things.
Yeah.
They're like, you'd think it's your enemies that are gonna come after you. It's your friends. It's your friends. But I think on a more serious note, though, I think the guys and I think most people actually realize the need for these alcohol evidence centers. I think drinking and driving is something that's sort of like become a norm in this country, and we need to fight that message. And I think with the work that's being done with the awareness campaigns coming out, with the campaign, the digital campaign that's coming out, I think that also will also take it to the people at home to actually see the consequences of what drinking and driving can cause. And that's basically what we do this for, man. Just to make sure that we stay responsible with our alcohol, and we can all be able to go out for a jol again the following week.
Also, you know, was it 28,000?
24,000 currently.
24,000. My mind
growing
goes.
weekly.
You've prevented 24,000 deaths potentially. You know what I mean? You've saved 24,000 families. You've saved 24,000 legacies. There's so many ways that I can look at it. One thing I'm not going to make jokes about is the fact that I don't believe that people change. So you're right. South Africans have become too confident with drinking and driving. South Africans also seem to use December, and we say, hey, December, we're going to Decemberize. Like all of a sudden the rules are off, when I think that's when it's even more important. And I also want to say, I'm not saying that anybody mustn't Decemberize. I'm just saying that we're saying there will be consequences. So select your designated driver before we go. Maybe you should have a whole calendar for every hotspot, every night that you're going to be going out, who it's going to be. Start a designated Dave WhatsApp group. Maybe you got to draw straws, find ways to make it exciting. But I believe that education maybe will change behavior in a small way, but I don't think specifically in our country, nothing changes behavior as much as consequences and being able to enforce those consequences. So well done you, bruh. Well done.
I think it's actually, you've hit the nail on the head around it becoming the norm. And I think it's very important that we also, it's not just about the driver, it's about everybody else, right? So if I've gone out with someone and they were supposed to drive us home, and now I see them drinking, am I holding them accountable and saying, hey, you are a designated driver, what are you doing? You
100%.
know, because I think it's a dangerous place to be as a country when we normalize bad behavior. And I think that's what I love about SAB Sharp. It's this whole championing responsibility and being the solution, doing our part to be the solution. And I think it's important as a community, as family, friends, we put pressure so that it becomes ridiculous for you to even say it out loud.
What
that
are
you did what? Like,
Yes.
we need to have that whole
100%.
You did what?
There needs to be shame involved.
Like you should be ashamed, because the people like the Oliphants and the Samsons, they've lost a family member that you can't take it back. And I'm sure, and I think our previous guest said it, is that nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to kill 4 people. But that's what happened, and it was unavoidable. You didn't have to get in the car. You could have taken a rideshare service. You could have phoned a friend, someone to come pick you up. You could have stayed in your car in South Africa, but you could have. I think there's ways around it, and I think that's going to be very important for us as a country to assist ourselves and holding each other accountable to say, we want to see for New Year's Eve, we want to see tomorrow, we want to have more cheers. So how are we holding each other accountable? Are you that person? How many times, I'm going to look in the camera as well to say, how many times have we gotten into a car with a drunk driver where this person's been drinking and you touch my chance and just say, people are flipping. So I think there's a thing where people also go, I think I'm less drunk.
Yeah.
So I'll drive. Or I drive better, my favorite.
I drive better.
I drive better when I'm drunk because I'm concentrating. Lies. Absolute lies. There's no such thing. It is you think it's like when when you're sleeping and you think you're awake.
That's we know what you are right there.
That's the same thing. And yeah, so and if we're not responsible South Africans and we're gonna have this right taken away from us. So I think onus is on us. Alcohol is there to be enjoyed responsibly. Have a beer, get into a rideshare service, like be responsible, and you'll see tomorrow. It's actually not worth it. It really
You left a small door open there that I'm going to close, where you said, maybe in South Africa sleeping in your car is not a thing, and unfortunately it is a thing. I don't care how dangerous it is where you're at. If you jump in that car, it's not your life anymore. It's somebody else's life, and that's where I'm just like, if you find yourself in that position because of whether it's poor planning or the infrastructure or the plan fell apart, even if that's your worst case scenario, that's how I feel about it. And for anybody who's doubting that, it's that sentence of nobody's jumping in their car with an intention to kill 4 children. That's what you could do. You could ruin your life, and worse than that, ruin the lives of others. So don't dull up. Sleep in your car, worst case. Worst case, take a risk. Sleep in your car.
I love that. Aviwe, you with your friends at law enforcement, we will not be calling you, but any parting thoughts to people listening and on what traffic? I'm sure there's a lot of planning that law enforcement is doing ahead of the festive season to keep us safe as well. Anything that you want to leave our audience with?
So I think for me, it's sort of like a behavior change thing that I want to sort of see this December. We've done a lot of work around getting these these mobile centers out and visible in the public, make sure they're in busy roads and whatnot. But I think what's important is it's what then the community thinks. It's not about us catching you, it's about us protecting you, as you say, us protecting lives. So any assistance that we can get, i.e. don't drink and drive, that's great. That's great for us. We want to see the numbers. I mean, it's great to see the numbers go up now because it means the centers are being used effectively. It means that we're getting the message across. But eventually, where we want to go is we don't want to see those numbers go up. We want to see those numbers to start coming down, because what that tells us is that we've got the culture change that we were hoping for. So, yeah.
What do one of these centers cost?
One costs about a center itself costs about 1.4. If you add in the breathalyzers, we're looking at about 1.7 million per unit.
Plus staff every month because of nurses, consumables.
So those are running costs that go up.
And how many of them did you say there are currently?
We currently have 28.
We're looking
to get 50. We're looking to get 50.
Can I just ask you, Marsha, these are the things you must put on billboards.
Yeah.
These are the things that you must put on. I don't want to see billboards saying, people want bonuses of 3 million. I want your billboards to say, this is what we spent on things that don't dispense alcohol. This is because it's that type of investment that changes narratives. It's that type of investment that creates real change. So well done to you. Extra well done to you. And what I love about this whole picture is if I met you at a roadblock, jumping out of a Golf, after drinking and driving, same look, same feature, same outfit, same dress code. So I love that. Still a Kasi boy at heart, showing that Kasi boys, even us, we can make a difference. Salute, Masekant. Nicely done.
So guys, we've come to the end of our podcast today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If I can say, it really is an important conversation we were having today, and we shouldn't just have it just for December, but we do know that this is when it goes up, but really being responsible at all times. And if I can just leave you with South Africa, be sharp, don't drink and drive. We want to see you back here next year for more exciting times on the More Cheers podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Be sharp, sharp, sharp.
Cheers.